The argument stops at 10:47 on a Tuesday night. One person says, "I cannot do this right now," walks into the bedroom, and closes the door. The apartment becomes quiet, but the conflict does not. The person left in the kitchen has no idea whether this is a 20-minute pause, an overnight silence, or the beginning of an ending. That uncertainty changes the task. A moment ago, the question was who would handle the rent payment. Now the question is whether the relationship is still available. The practical disagreement is replaced by waiting, scanning, and deciding whether another message will calm the situation or make it worse. By midnight, the person in the kitchen has drafted 4 texts. One explains the original point more gently. One apologizes for the tone. One says, "Forget it." The last asks, "Are you even coming back?" None of those messages are really about rent anymore. They are attempts to end the uncertainty.
I call this structure a returnless pause. The phrase does not describe a personality, and it does not tell us why someone went quiet. It names one observable problem. A conflict was paused, but no path back into the conversation was provided. That distinction matters because walking away is not automatically cruel. During intense conflict, people can become physiologically and emotionally flooded. Attention narrows, defensive thoughts accelerate, and even an ordinary sentence can arrive as another threat. Continuing at that point may produce sharper words, less comprehension, and more damage. Research on intimate partner flooding treats this sense of being overwhelmed as a meaningful process in dysfunctional conflict. A pause can therefore be a regulation skill. It can interrupt escalation long enough for both nervous systems to recover. The useful question is not simply, did someone leave? It is, what structure surrounded the leaving?
Without that structure, the 2 nervous systems may move in opposite directions. The overwhelmed person seeks distance. The uncertain person seeks contact. More messages create more pressure. More silence creates more alarm. Each person may be trying to regulate, while each move intensifies the other person's distress. This resembles a demand-withdraw cycle, but the labels should not become verdicts. The person asking for contact may become repetitive or harsh. The person withdrawing may genuinely be unable to think clearly. Naming the cycle is useful only if it helps both people design a safer interruption. There are now 2 issues to handle in order. First, the original disagreement. Second, the way the pause was taken. If the second issue is ignored, every future pause inherits the fear of the last one. If the first is ignored, silence becomes a way for unresolved problems to disappear.
3 observable tests can separate a constructive break from a returnless pause. None requires mind reading. They look at what was communicated before the break, whether a point of return existed, and what happened when the time apart ended. The first test is announcement. Did the person identify their condition and the purpose of leaving? "I am too activated to listen well" is different from "you are impossible." "I need to calm down" is different from "maybe you will learn when I stop speaking to you." A useful announcement can be brief. "I care about this conversation, and I am losing the ability to stay respectful." "I need a break." That sentence does not solve the conflict. It does something more immediate. It tells the other person that distance is being used to regulate the conversation, not to erase it.
The second test is a return point. It does not need to be an exact appointment down to the minute. It can be, "Give me half an hour. Let us talk after breakfast. I cannot do tonight, but I will call tomorrow by noon." The essential information is that the conversation still has a future. Sometimes people cannot predict how long regulation will take. Then use a check-in rather than a false promise. "I do not know whether I will be ready in an hour, but I will message at 9 and tell you what I can do." A check-in reduces ambiguity without demanding instant emotional recovery. The person receiving the pause can respond without chasing or pretending not to care. "I can give you space. I need a time when we will check in, because open-ended silence is difficult for me. If tonight is too soon, choose a realistic time tomorrow."
The third test is return. Did the person come back? And did they come back to the original subject? Sending a meme, becoming affectionate, or asking what is for dinner may restore contact. It does not necessarily restore the conversation that was interrupted. A genuine return can sound ordinary. I am calmer now. You were asking why the payment was late. I became overwhelmed and left, but I want to finish. The evidence of repair is not a beautiful speech. It is the willingness to reopen the specific issue instead of making closeness depend on forgetting it. That creates a simple sequence. Signal the pause, regulate rather than rehearse the argument, check in at the promised time, and return to the event. Couples can adapt the timing. The sequence is what keeps a break from becoming an indefinite emotional waiting room.
It helps to design this before the next fight. Choose a neutral phrase that means, I am flooded, not, I am abandoning the discussion. Agree on a minimum break, a maximum period before checking in, and who is responsible for restarting. The person who requests the break should normally initiate the return. Use the time apart to lower activation. Walk, shower, breathe, stretch, or do something absorbing enough to interrupt the internal courtroom. A break spent composing a devastating closing argument may create physical distance while preserving the same emotional intensity. The return may still be awkward. Someone may need notes. Someone may say, I can talk for 15 minutes, and I need sleep. Good faith repair does not require unlimited availability. It requires enough predictability that neither person must trade away the original issue to regain contact.
If returnless pauses keep happening, the boundary should describe your participation rather than command another person's nervous system. You can say, I will not continue important conversations through unexplained disappearance. If you need space, tell me when you will check in. If that cannot happen consistently, I will reconsider how we handle conflict together. Watch the pattern, not one difficult night. A caregiver may be interrupted. A shift worker may fall asleep. A neurodivergent partner may need more recovery time than expected. An emergency can break an agreement. The important question is whether the person later acknowledges the gap and helps redesign the process. Also resist turning duration into a universal moral rule. 20 minutes may be a useful physiological floor for some conflicts, but not everyone becomes ready on the same clock. Predictability, good faith updating, and actual re-engagement tell you more than an arbitrary number of minutes.
There is an important safety boundary. If conflict includes threats, stalking, blocked exits, physical intimidation, or violence, returning to the conversation is not the primary goal. Create distance, contact trusted support, and use local safety resources. Communication tools should never be used to pressure someone back into danger. In ordinary nonviolent conflict, however, a reliable return changes the emotional meaning of space. It tells the overwhelmed person, you may regulate without being pursued. It tells the waiting person, you do not have to surrender your concern in order to keep the relationship. Return to Tuesday night. The better version is not that neither person leaves. It is this, I am too activated to talk well. I need 40 minutes. At 11:30, I will come back to the kitchen. If I need longer, I will tell you before then.
At 11:30, the door opens. The first sentence is not, are you over it now? It is, I am back. We were talking about the rent payment. I want to understand what happened and decide who is doing what tomorrow. The issue becomes manageable again because the relationship returned to reality. A healthy pause protects two forms of dignity at once: the right not to keep talking while overwhelmed, and the right not to be left indefinitely guessing whether a meaningful conversation still exists. Neither right requires perfect timing. Both require communication. The next time a conflict needs to stop, do not ask only whether space is allowed. Ask what makes the space trustworthy. A clear signal, a realistic return point, and an actual return transform silence from an emotional cliff into a bridge both people know how to cross.